what's going on? It's Matt with the DPI podcast. Peter's kind of stunned that we're doing another Lorcana segment tonight.
Dude, I was waiting for a deep dive.
Well, I was. So this is why I wanted to do another Lorcana segment this week, because I wanted to get into the break so that we could sit down and have those playthroughs in the break, and it made sense in our timeline on this. So
I'm
yeah.
just saying, you have my number, right? Like,
yeah.
Text is a thing.
All right.
I can explain the game. Do you want me to go run and grab some cards?
Yes. Go run and grab some cards real quick. While you're running and grabbing some cards. Okay. So here, before you run and grab cards, we can have a quick discussion, and then we'll do a quick setup over on the other side, because I have questions and I have things flying and falling. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna grab some cards real quick, and then just so I have some.
Okay. This is great.
I grabbed a brand new. This is one of the Floodborne decks. As you can see, all I did was take it out of the box. I haven't even opened the Floodborne deck because I've been only playing with my Series 1.
Which Floodborne deck do you have?
What?
Which Floodborne deck do you have?
I don't know what it's called. It's Steel and Amethyst, though. I don't know.
Steel and Amethyst is Tiana and Merlin?
Yeah, Merlin's on the top. Yep, Tiana. Yep, but I'm gonna move those to the side because I never ever play with any of my foils.
So I'm gonna do the same thing. I have a Amber and Amethyst first series deck that I'm gonna open. So real quick before we get into this, let's talk about what do you need to play a Lorcana match.
So I didn't grab this, so you hopefully have it handy and nearby. You need a deck of cards. The deck of cards need to have a couple of criteria. They need to be at least 60 cards large.
Okay.
You can have no more than 2 inks. So as we talked about in our first episode, there are 6 different inks. Emerald is green, ruby is red, amethyst is purple, what am I missing? Amber is the color of your energy. No, it's yellow. Then sapphire is blue and steel is silver. And the colors of the card, so 2 things, you have the symbol right down here.
Yep.
And the entire title of the card is the color. So you can see here I have an amethyst and steel deck because I have a deck of purple cards and gray cards. You're welcome to use one of the currently 5 available decks, 3 in the first series, 2 in the Floodborne.
Yeah.
Or you're welcome to build your own. Must have at least 60 cards, must be made of no more than 2 inks, and must not have more than 4 copies of a single card. This is confusing to some because, for example, there are approximately 15 Mickey Mouse iterations. You can't have more than 4 of an iteration of a card.
Correct.
So I can have 4 Elsa Snow Queens, but I could also have 4 Elsa's Queen of Arendelle. Or Queen Regent is her Queen of Arendelle one. So I could have a deck with 16 Elsas, but as long as they're 4 different versions of Elsa.
All right. And then what are the different types of games that you can play? So you have where you just have your own deck versus a deck of somebody else. What's a blind draw match?
So there you're talking about on a blind draw match. Now you're probably talking that you're going to a game store. Maybe your local game store does this, where you get X number of packs. It's typically 4 or 5 because 5 packs would put you at 12 cards per pack. But I would still, as soon as I open those packs, pull the foil and move it off to the side, unless it's some common foil, in which case then maybe I'd think about it. Because even like here, you go, yeah, but everybody's getting this Merlin and this Tiana. Yeah, but at some point, those Tiana cards are going to get torched by little kids, and all of a sudden, I'm going to have a super rare foil Tiana at some point in the future.
Yeah.
And they're no longer going to be publishing Inkborn decks. So I'm not going to go torch my super rare foil Tiana card by just throwing it into a game. But anyway, if it was like a common, maybe even an uncommon foil that came out of these packs, sure, maybe I'd throw that in the game. But you basically just rip open some packs, and that's your deck. So you throw away the can't have more than 4 cards, and you throw away the no more than 2 inks criteria of building your own deck that you would expect to see in what will eventually be organized tournament play similar to Magic the Gathering, where people will bring in created decks that are driven and mission built. Like, there are some cards in Magic that are worth lots and lots of money because they're just fantastic cards to put in a deck.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the same case with Lorcana, I would guess, at some point. But I'm kind of banking on that.
How many players can play at a time?
Technically 2, but there is actually some verbiage in the rule book. Here, I actually have it nearby. Lorcana is a fun 2-player game, but there's nothing stopping you from playing games of 3 or more. That would be very, very interesting to play a game of 3 or more, because one of the major things is if your character is exhausted, and we'll talk about all of this in the gameplay here in just a minute, but if my character is exhausted, it makes them available to be challenged. So I would need to be really careful about, if I'm in like a 4-player game, I could put a character out that's going to be so amazingly beneficial for me, but my character enters play exhausted. And so I could put this amazing character into play, and then people could gang up on me, and the next thing I know, I don't even have that character. So I don't know. There's some stuff there.
All right. So we start a little bit. We talked a little bit about a deck. So 60 cards to a deck, 2 inks, no more.
Sorry. Characters enter ready, but you just can't use them. So I guess they would be protected until your next turn. But
okay.
Still. So then, yeah, outside of the deck, you need this this page that Matt's got sitting here. You're not really in focus though on that camera, just so you know, buddy. You are still not in focus, but significantly better. Ooh, now you're in focus. So as you can see on this little simple paper comes in every of your pre-made decks, and there's really just there's just 5 things on it. There is your draw pile, your discard pile, and then there is your inkwell, and there is your kind of player area. Okay, so you can see those are labeled on there, although you are upside down. So
on the screen that's going out, it's flipped.
Okay, perfect. All right, so you can see there's cards in play and inkwell, and then there is your draw pile and your discard pile. And then in the middle is that lore tracker. I mentioned this on the first video, but we'll say it again now. The goal of the game is to gain 20 lore before any of your opponents. And again, this is designed as a 2-player game, which is likely where it shines. But there is nothing stopping you from playing like 3, 4, 5-player teams. I don't know what that would look like, but you can come up with all sorts of variants if you want.
Yeah. Okay. So we have our decks. We have our little score mat. Our game mat here. So with the cards, are we shuffling the deck? What are we doing with our cards?
You are. You're going to start by shuffling your deck, and then once you shuffle your deck, you are going to draw a starting hand. And your starting hand is 5 cards, and or sorry, 7 cards. And your starting hand, there's kind of a just deal with what you got, or there's a slightly more advanced version where you can draw your 7, look at them, discard any number of them, and then draw back to 7. Which I think even in like your early games, you would want that power and that ability, because if you have a bunch of cards that are not inkable, or you have a bunch of cards that cost a lot, there's nothing you can do.
Okay. So take this out. I did not shuffle very good.
Oh, geez, he just went straight into that. Like, I'm sitting here doing a gentle shuffle. That man just straight up bridged the cards. Although some people will tell you that what I'm doing is more damaging to cards because you hit their corners.
Okay. Now we'll be significantly more shuffled.
Okay. So,
all right.
Yeah, what next? What do you want to talk about next?
So I'll put...
Are we pretend drawing cards?
Yeah.
Oh, this is your hand?
So that is a hand.
I better, I got to make this camera bigger because right now I have you small in the corner to avoid looking at this screen and try to look at my camera so that I do a better job of being a person.
Yeah. No, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
So
how does the game end? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
How does the game start?
Okay, so you figure out a start player just by drawing a coin or whatever you want to do. You know, flip a coin, draw whatever. You know, draw a card, whichever one has a higher ink value. Flip a coin, roll a die. I have a chooser app on my phone because I'm a huge board gamer. So I actually have multiple apps where you touch the screen and then it picks somebody randomly. So whatever. But whoever the start player is going to begin their turn. So you want me to talk about a turn?
Yes.
Okay, so you get to do... Oh, excuse me. So you start with what's known as the beginning phase, and then you go into what's known as the main phase. So every turn consists of 2 phases, beginning phase and main phase. In the beginning phase, any of your cards that are exerted... So when you exert a card, you'll take it and you'll just kind of turn it sideways. Okay. So the first thing that you will do is you will ready it by moving it to its upper position. Then some cards do talk about during beginning phase, so during sets.
Okay.
Let me see. I don't think I have when you play. No, when you play. No, when this character. No, when you play. Yeah, I don't have any. I also drew 7 just to have in my hand to simulate, but some cards do say set, and during set they give you some type of an ability, like maybe looking at the top 2 cards of your deck and putting one on the bottom and putting one back on top, or or something along those lines, right? And then you get to draw a card. So you get to draw 1 card per turn, which is one of the biggest, I guess, hindrances or things that make the game a little tight in kind of board game vernacular, elements that make the game play tight to where you're now limited. So the cards are very limited. So if you have cards that let you draw more cards, those are very, very valuable gameplay cards.
Okay.
So I drew my card. Now the first player does not draw a card on their first ready or their first beginning phase, but then the second player would. So the first player is just stuck with their 7 and gets to play their turn, so they kind of like skip down to the main phase. So in the main phase, you are allowed to do You are allowed to play 1 ink to your inkwell each turn. And only 1. No more than 1. So this is another thing that makes it very, very tight in terms of the game. So like I'm looking at your cards right now, and what you'll notice is that the cheapest card that you have is 2 ink. So that means that on your first turn, all you're going to be able to really do is play a card into your inkwell and not do anything else because you can't pay for any of your cards.
Yeah.
Which is where maybe drawing again. Now, I'm also holding a hand of nothing but 2s, 3s, and 4s, but there are absolutely cards that cost 1 out in your deck. So if you want to get cards into play right away, you better make sure in that draw that you do what you can to keep some 1s. So that's typically done first, inking a card, because like I have a hand of cards, I want to put one into ink. When you play a card into ink, here's what you do. You take a card and you prove to your competitor that it is inkable. So if you watch our first video, a ring around the hexagon is the card's cost. The ring around it says it is inkable. And so for you, your entire hand is inkable. However, not all cards are inkable. For example, this mouse armor here is not, because it does not have that ring around it.
Yeah.
And so when you ink a card, you do have to prove it's inkable, because otherwise you can be like, I'm inking a card. Well, no, you can't ink this card. When you ink a card, so let's just go ahead and grab one of yours, Matt, at random, because we're obviously not playing the game. You have 2 copies of Dr. Facilier.
Okay.
So why don't you grab one of those Dr. Faciliers, and what you're going to do is you're going to turn him upside down and put him in the inkwell.
Okay.
Upside down. Like, flip it over.
Oh,
flip it over.
Face down.
There you go. So, yes, face down. So now that card is inked. That card is never going to come back to your hand. That card is never going to do anything. It is just going to serve as your ink throughout this game.
Okay.
Okay.
So that gives me 2 ink, correct?
Nope, that's 1 ink.
That's 1 ink. Okay.
Our card equals 1 ink.
Okay.
Yep. Regardless, like that card is 1 ink. Let's just maybe advance a little bit into the game now. So why don't you go ahead and grab 3 more cards and ink 3 more cards.
Okay. So 3 more cards up, 3 more cards down.
You know what? Actually, let's go slowly. So grab 1 card and put it into your hand.
Okay.
So now let's move on to your next turn, right? So at the start of your next turn, you would have drawn a card.
Yep.
Now you can choose a card to ink. So I don't know, at random or whatever you just kind of look at and are feeling.
Yep. Okay. So we'll take the.
He's not like an Yzma. He's going to ink Yzma. Okay, and then you'll want to spread them out a little bit so that like your ink is visible.
Oh, okay.
Not your ink.
So like.
Yep. Yeah. So now you can see like I have 2 ink available. Okay. So now another thing that you're going to do on your turn is you're going to play a card. Okay. Now there are different types of cards. The primary card, the ones that occur the most, are characters. When you play a character, you are going to exhaust the ink that it requires to draw that character, which is why, right, you can only have 2 ink types. And so you're turning ink so that you can draw this amethyst card. So I don't know, what card do you want to draw, Pascal or Dr. Facilier?
Let's just draw Pascal.
So you're going to turn an ink sideways. There you go. And then you have drawn Pascal. And so Pascal goes into your play area. Pascal does come in upright, but you cannot use Pascal during this turn.
Okay.
So now your turn would be over. You do have 1 more ink, but you have nothing that you can do with it. So let's move on to your next turn. So on your next turn, you're going to start by readying your cards. None of your cards. So you're going to ready that ink over there.
So this ink goes to ready?
Yep. And then you're going to draw another card.
Okay.
Well, you already have a Pascal in play, so why don't we just, so moving through your turn, you're going to ink a card. You might as well ink that Pascal. So now you have 3 ink available. So you could draw Maximus by using all of your ink, or you could draw Dr. Facilier. So go ahead and choose one of those, because you're going to be playing the card.
So we'll draw Maximus, and then I'll take all 3 of these and turn them sideways.
Yep, so those are all exhausted now, so you're out of that ink. But now Pascal's been in play for a little bit, right? So Maximus is not available this turn, but Pascal is. So you can do one of 2 things with Pascal. You can quest. When you quest with a character, you're going to exhaust them, and you're going to gain the lore printed on the side of the character. Okay. So you can see there Pascal is worth 1 lore.
Okay.
The other thing you could do with Pascal is you can challenge. So if during your turn an opponent has a card that is exhausted, that card is now challengeable.
Okay.
So we talked about the ins and outs of the card. You have the card's strength and its willpower. So if Pascal were to challenge, let's say I had this prince in play. If Pascal were to challenge this prince, I have a willpower of 3, which is where my damage marker would come in. So Pascal would do a damage to my prince, but I would do 1 damage to Pascal, and Pascal has a willpower of 1. So Pascal would go to your discard pile if that were to happen. Or you can quest with him. So whichever one you think you'd like to do, go ahead and just choose one, and we'll turn Pascal. And
so we'll quest with Pascal. So he goes to exhausted like that, correct?
And then you're going to move your lore counter up 1 space.
Okay.
So there you go. You are now 1/20th of the way done with the game.
Okay.
So now let's pretend that I'm doing a turn, and so now I have my prince. So let's just kind of talk through this. This is a great thing to talk about. So let's say my prince is in my deck, or in my play area, because I got the prince into play. It would be my 3rd turn. So this would now be going into, that was your 3rd turn. So this would be going into my 4th turn. So I could have put this prince in play last turn. So now my prince, I could quest with him for 2, or because your Pascal is sideways, I could use my prince to attack Pascal, putting a damage on prince but leaving him still healthy, and then wiping Pascal out of the game, which let's just say I go ahead and do.
Okay.
So I did 1 damage to Pascal, so now Pascal has to be discarded. Okay. And then whatever else I do on my turn, inking cards, drawing new cards, doing some questing of my own. But that's the other aspect of this game. If you just sit and worry about your cards in play and trying to quest, well, if your opponent does it better, they're going to have this engine built where they're gaining 5+ quest a turn, and you're not going to have enough firepower to take them out.
Yeah, yeah. And I can see where knowing kind of how to play that ratio will come into play. Like how many cards you want to quest and how many cards that you want to have back that aren't available to be challenged.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Like if you don't use your card for questing or challenging, if you don't use that card, it stays readied. And if it's readied, it's not challengeable.
Yeah. So you can kind of wait. So if you've got a card that deals a lot of damage, let's say like a Dragon's Fire or something like that, that deals a lot of damage, you could wait till your opponent has a bunch of lower willpower cards out. Now, can you challenge multiple cards at once?
No, so if you challenge, you are single challenging another single character. You can't just say, well, I do 5 damage, so it kills that 2 and that 2 and that 1.
Okay. And then with the main part of the play, so once I bring a character into play, characters that have already been into play, can I move multiple characters to quest?
Yeah, you can do so in your ready area. Every two. Okay, so character cards. Every character, every turn can either be sent to quest or sent to challenge.
Okay.
Because they're going to then go to exhausted, and then at the beginning of your next turn, you're going to ready them, which allows them to be available again. And again, they come in readied, but their ink is still drying, so they cannot immediately be activated, which would avoid something like let's say I have here, I'll just say, let me find one real quick. Here. So like, let's say I had this beast in play.
Okay.
Well, this beast has a willpower of 4. So let's say I had this beast in play and I used him to wipe out Pascal.
Okay.
Well, I know that it would take all of your Maximus to wipe out this beast.
Uh-huh.
Because you would have to take 3 damage, therefore banishing your Maximus, and then I would have 1 damage from that Pascal, so your Maximus could take out this beast. But I know that right now you would have to make a pros and cons decision, and so I'm willing to take that risk that you're not going to attack this beast and knock him out. But if you were to all of a sudden like paint Naveen, or actually I guess he's got 3 willpower, so that's not a fantastic example. Let me.
Well, even like Ariel here has a 4 willpower.
Here, I just found a Kronk. Yeah, exactly. That Ariel, this Kronk.
Uh-huh.
Like if you could put this into play and immediately kill my beast and not kill your Kronk, like you blindside me.
Yeah.
So the premise is you just drew it. It needs time to dry. But in reality is I need to be able to see your tableau so that I can continue strategizing on how to do mine in a way that allows me to challenge / quest and everything else.
All right. Well, I think that gets us to a good stopping point in this episode.
There's 2 other cards.
Okay.
So there are tools. Tools go into your ready area and grant you kind of persistent benefits. And then there are songs. And songs are very, very cool. So there are action cards. And some of those action cards are songs. Here, let me just grab. I've got 2 of what I need. Give me 30 more seconds. Feel free to talk about whatever you want.
No, you're good.
Want me to answer.
Good. So no, if you're enjoying this Lorcana segment, we are going to continue with some more gameplay over the Christmas break. So Peter and I are going to get together. We're going to run through some games with multiple cameras. So an overhead shot of our playboard, and then cameras on each of us so we can kind of discuss as we're working through the games. Again, this is actually my first time seeing cards on a mat.
Dude, this deck has no songs.
Are you sure?
I'm 100% sure. Grab a song out of yours, because I don't want to have to run and grab. I know yours has
be
songs.
Our guest.
Perfect.
Yeah, character with a cost 2 or more can sing.
Yeah. So here, let me do this, and then yeah, I'll get to that. So here is an item. So it is an item. Items cannot be sent on quests, but items go into your ready area.
Okay.
And so what it says is arm yourself. If you banish this item, first of all, you do have to pay an ink to activate the item. So it does show 1 ink right there. So I have to spend an ink, and then I can banish this item, and then my chosen character gets +3 on their challenge. So they get +3 strength on their challenge. So I could have like given your Pascal this cannon, and Pascal would have been packing a firepower of 4. Okay, now items stay in play and either give you some type of an immediate benefit or something like that where you can choose when to do it. but items can't be like challenged because they're not a character.
Yeah.
They're just going to sit in play unless you have a card that straight up lets you say that says
Banishes
banish an
actions.
item.
Yeah.
Yeah. Freeze is an action, so that's the third type of card. And freeze says this is very fun. So actions are immediate things, and then they immediately go to your discard once they take place. So freeze is going to take me 2 ink to play, so I would have to exhaust 2 of my ink. And then it says exert chosen opposing character. So like you could have been protecting a character from me because you really want to quest it next turn and you don't want it killed because it gives you some type of an awesome benefit. So I could play freeze. I could then turn that card so that I could attack it.
Okay.
And then the other type of action is a song. So Matt has Be Our Guest down there in play. And what's cool about songs is if you look in the upper left, there's a cost. So you could just exert that much ink and just sing the song. Or all songs have a thing on the top of them that say, as Matt can read right there,
a character with cost 2 or more can exert to sing this song for free.
So instead of questing or challenging, you can take a character, exert it, and if it meets the criteria, you can then sing the song and do whatever the song says without having to spend your ink, which is huge because, as you see, Matt is 3 turns in and has 3 ink available. There were some cards that I've shown in this video that are like 6s. Like Kronk is a 6. Like, if I exhaust, look at Matt's deck right now. Even when Matt puts a 4th ink out, if I sing a song, that means I can't put Jetsam or Ariel or, like, I lose the ability to do other things.
Yeah, yeah. So, but the song on this one is look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal a character card and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order.
Right.
So what you were talking about as the songs and that need for additional cards so you're not as limited in your hand, that helps with that. I have another song up here. It's Hakuna Matata. And the action on this one is remove up to 3 damage from each of your characters. So
yeah, that's pretty awesome, right? If you get some powerful characters out there and you can kind of heal them up.
Yeah.
I have this card's cool. It is Merlin during his wizard duel, so he is in goat form. And when I play this character and when he leaves play, I gain 1 lore. So just putting him into play and then you killing him,
it's 2 lore.
2 lore. Yeah, in addition to being able to quest with him, you know. So yeah, there's just so many, and that's the thing about this. Like, all these cards are different. They may do similar things, but they're different in unique ways. And as Matt mentioned in the first episode of this, you want to talk about a massive dump of artwork. I mean, none of these cards have ever been drawn before by Disney animators.
Yeah, I mean, there's just
how cool is this little Lilo galactic hero?
Yeah.
Right? And like the takes on some of these things are not from any IP or anything else like that. Now some of them are, right? Here's like all the things I already showed you. Goat Merlin, here's Rabbit Merlin, here's Squirrel Merlin. Like some of them are straight up like, oh yeah, I remember that from the movie. But like some of this stuff, you know, same thing here with like this Prince Eric. Like that's right before he drives the ship into Ursula's heart.
Well,
you know?
And I think that goes into like the difference between Storyborn and Dreamborn characters. The Storyborn characters are characters that are what you remember from the movies. But if you look at a Dreamborn character like Maximus here, they are different.
Cinderella Knight in Training.
Than what you remember. And this is what makes this game really cool, is there are a lot of takes on these characters that aren't what you remember from the movies that give them these abilities to do things that maybe they couldn't do in the movies. So yeah,
like,
another.
look at this thing. Hey, it's Dreamborn. It's hey, but man, dude's looking like a phoenix over here.
Yeah, just great artwork.
It's hey the Phoenix. He's totally a phoenix. Because when this character is banished, it returns to your hand. Like, it's totally hey as a phoenix, and they gave him a power that makes him a phoenix.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's just such a fun game, which is why, like, the people that are sitting there like naysaying it, they're naysaying it because they don't want to pay the cost to get it while it's hot. Because if Magic and Pokemon have created a place in this world, how can Disney not wiggle into that market when it already has the fan base behind it?
It's a great discussion. I mean, and I'm really looking forward to, I think one of the big things in this game is kind of learning the different cards, learning their strengths, learning what's good to have versus what's just, a common card to have, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot to this that is just like, hey, how do you learn this stuff?
And I don't have this off the top of my head, so this is definitely something researchable or talkable in another episode once I have time to prepare. But each ink has something that it does well.
Yeah, so what I've been noticing in the pack openings is like Steel, a lot of the cards have higher willpowers.
Right. So exactly so they have different abilities. Like there is an ink that is very good at questing. There is an ink that is very good at letting you draw cards. There is an ink that is very good at letting you make ink faster. So being able to put more ink into play quicker so you can get those really expensive cards out faster. Inks do different things. So that is definitely something to take into consideration as you are like building a deck, which is what's cool because now there are 5 pre-made decks. And so even the game itself is playing with, well, what happens when you mix some inks that weren't mixed originally?
Yeah. Well, and even Floodborne starts getting into that a little bit because they only released 2 Floodborne decks, but they were 2 alternate ink combinations.
Right. They're not the 3 ink combinations that were in the original series, which is what I really appreciate about them. Because I am still just playing with starter decks. I'm very intrigued with what you're doing with what you just ordered us, because I think that will be very cool for us to basically do a draw tournament against each other.
Yeah. Well, and I've been opening card decks since last Tuesday, so I've gotten through basically everything up until Christmas. I've already got all the other ones already opened. And I found to get to a point where you can make a true deck out of packs that took 13 packs of cards. To get to 60
where you can even get 60 with just 2 inks.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but the best thing that you can do if you're interested in Lorcana is go buy a 24-pack booster box.
Yeah.
I mean, because otherwise, even at great retail prices, you're still money behind when it comes to being able to get 24 packs into your hand all at once.
Yeah. So that is this week's Lorcana discussion. If you have any questions about the game, definitely put them in the comments or put them in the chat. And we will see you on the other side of Christmas break. So January 9th is probably our next live where we will start talking about more gameplay and really getting into deck building and that kind of stuff. So definitely check us out after the break, and we'll have things releasing during the break as well. So thank you guys all for joining us this week. I'm going to go ahead and get into the outro. Hey, thanks for checking us out today. Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons to help out the channel. Also, if you're looking for some more Disney content, check this out. I think you're gonna like it.